Hello, hello, and welcome to day three. I would love to hear how your brand attributes are coming along. So please feel free to send me a note and just fill me in on how you're feeling. Give yourself some space and time to let it be a process. Just so you are aware, this is something, nailing out, nailing down and teasing out your brand attributes and pillars, which is what today is about, is something that we go over in the class and something that, after me getting to know you and your work and sitting in your energy, I can help you with. So please know that that's available. Um, yeah, so we'll just dive in. Today shouldn't be too long. The next step in this brand world evolution in really just like taking all these spaces and making clarity is to um, create or identify. I feel like this is more of an identification, sort of similar to brand attributes. And this to me actually almost just feels more like an uncovering of what's already there rather than creation from scratch. So, like where the brand world sort of feels like a mix of both. The overall brand world is a mix of both, and your brand attributes are more like intention setting. And brand pillars, I think, is a mix of intention setting or setting intention, but also seeing what you are naturally bringing to the table and um, how you organize that in a way that is uh, with intention, but also in a way that people will um, receive from you. So, if you haven't heard of these before, no sweat. Brand pillars are essentially just buckets of information. They're categories that you share out into the world. Um, I actually like to think of them as just like if I look at my work as a whole, if I look at me as an individual practitioner and offerings and service provider, me as Beth, living under and connected to my brand Earth and Ether, what are the buckets of information that we collectively share? And each brand, you usually want to have like 5 to 8, some people say 10 brand pillars. I think my sweet spot right now is around 6. I allow these things to shift, these categories to shift as I grow and as I shift focus. Um, I am a generator in human design, and I also have a Gemini midheaven, meaning that I need to be excited about what I'm doing. And the Gemini midheaven means that I like a lot of things. So I'm going to, kind of like pick something up and go down this rabbit hole with it, and then want to share it, and then probably drop it away, or maybe I'll dial down the notch, or I'll turn down the notch or whatever on it. So for me, this is constantly a process of like almost like a quarterly check-in. Is this really where I want to be? Am I in alignment with the pillars that make sense for me right now? And how can I sort of tighten that up? So actually, just full disclosure, I'm in that process currently as I'm creating this video. Creating this mini series, for me shows me where I can tighten things up and be more intentional with my brand. And also I have enough flexibility to allow it to be what it is and allow it to grow and evolve with me, if that makes sense. So again, pillars are just like 5 to 8, 5 to 10 categories. Um, and they're pieces of information or buckets of information that you're here to share, but also parts of you. So you being the steward of your brand, and this course is sort of geared toward individuals that are running an intuitive business, and so oftentimes you are a solopreneur or working with a very small team. So it's really just you running the show, and oftentimes, uh, what we need to do as entrepreneurs and service providers or product providers is build what they call a know, like, and trust factor. I don't know why that term bugs me, but basically the way that I will translate that is that you know you want people to connect with you as a human. And so yes, you have certain pillars and categories that you are intending to share out into the world and maybe creating content around, or you are an expert in. And so this is what you're here to bring to us. And you're a human. So one thing that I did when I first started, you know, um, showing up and being visible with my brand was I kept things very, everything was very serious. And you can actually see it if you go back into my Instagram. And I don't have a ton of Instagram posts. That's not really um, my method, I guess, or that's not where I'm the most comfortable. And I don't really like being on social media that much. So you're not going to find me like having like hundreds and hundreds of posts. I really only post when it feels right for me. But you might notice, or maybe you've already noticed this before, but the way I was sharing all of my healing work out into the world was with like deep reverence, I would say, and a pretty serious tone, because the work that I do from a healing perspective is very, um, I don't take it lightly. It is very intentional, and the spaces that I hold are incredibly sacred, and we go to some pretty vulnerable spaces. So I really do have those feelings about healing and the modality I practice, emotional polarity technique, and my clients. And there's just like a very, I do not take it lightly. However, my personality is, I have a sarcasm and wit, and I like to be, a little more playful. I'm a Leo sun, but sometimes I don't allow that to show up, in my professional self. So one of the tasks or intentions or goals for myself this year is to really allow the multidimensionality to show up, in myself, uh, on a day-to-day basis, but also in my work. I consider this life's purpose work. So it's kind of a big deal, but also, I don't want to create more separation in the world or in myself. So I'm trying to bring all of that together. So I've been lately more intentional about tuning in more deeply to what my voice is in this space and how I want to show up, and how I can notice where I maybe I don't feel like I have permission to show up like myself, and where I just maybe wasn't even noticing that I wasn't doing that. So actually doing the brand pillar exercise for me, stepping back, writing down what I thought my pillars were, again, 5 to 8 buckets, and then looking at my social media. Social media is really good to look at because it just gives you a snapshot of what you're putting out there without having to like dig into all your emails or wherever else, looking at your website, like wherever else you put content. And because social media is it's like a living, everything on the internet is living and breathing and always evolving, but like you're going to be posting your social media more than you are your website, right? So this is a place that kind of gives you a snapshot of like where you were before and where you are now, if you've been doing it for a number of months, or years. And that really showed me, oh, there's a gap here. Like my personality, my sarcasm, the part of me that likes to cuss, the part of me that thinks that some healers out in the world are not holding a level of responsibility that I believe they should be. Like that's not being expressed authentically through me. So I am trying to allow, all parts of me to show up. And it's easier said than done, of course. But one of the ways that I'm doing that is by being intentional about bringing in my real life into my pillars. So I'll walk you through what my pillars are. And again, I am in my own process of always refining, but I just kind of like land on them and then probably check in on them quarterly just to make sure. Or when I notice my business shifting or my self shifting, kind of going back and being like, okay, is this still in alignment for me and for everybody else? So um, also, I will say, I wanted to note that, if you're somebody that's getting started with your social media, with your Instagram, for example, and you know how we have highlights, those little circles at the top of each, I feel like I'm telling you something that you already know, obviously, but the highlight space, you can actually lean into your pillars that you could make each highlight one different pillar, and gives people a very quick snapshot of just like reading those and seeing what you're about. So that's up to you. I currently don't have mine set up quite that way, but I am going to be moving into a direction where I think at least 4 of my pillars will be in my highlights. And some of these pillars can be outward facing. So meaning you actually label it in your highlights or speak about it as like that's part of your mission or your values. And some of it can just be inward facing. So for me, again, it's like allowing my full self to show up. Maybe one day I'll have a pillar that's called like whole self or wholeness or something, but right now it's currently an inward facing thing. And it actually shows up more subtly between how I'm showing up in brand and healing at the same time. So, okay, my pillars right now, just to give you an example. So hopefully this will help jog some things for you. Are healing, education and inspiration, branding authentically, which is what we're doing here, intuitive tools, my dog Frankie. So that's like a very personal thing. And then intentional living. So slowing down, honoring where I am. My husband and I in the summer especially go camping almost every weekend. We have a rooftop tent. We are gearing up right now to do some like, longer trips where we're just like spending a week out in nature. And that's something I don't really show on my Instagram that often, but it's probably because I'm really disconnected, and like actually connecting to earth. But it's something that is part of me. So when that also comes through and like, just like little daily practices like making tea, et cetera, et cetera. But those little pieces, the thing with my dog and this like letting people in on the behind the scenes, maybe of my creative process or, camping with my husband and just seeing beauty and being in awe of the world that we live in. Those are ways that I can honor my humanness and connect more closely with people who really allow people to get to be in my energy and be like, oh, yeah, I resonate with her, or oh, no, I don't resonate with her. Like our jobs in this space of creating an intentional and clear brand, and this really goes into creating content and copy, is to be as clear as possible about who you are. My mentor and coach says, clear is kind. Being as clear as possible is being kind. And I mean, sometimes we don't notice that we're not being clear. I certainly don't. I often that to be reflected back to me. However, we want to help people to know, okay, is this whatever you're offering? Is this, so say you're a service provider, is this service actually right for me or is it not right for me? We want to help people to get off the fence. The whole point is to help get rid of any indecision that someone may have around you. So I actually think that showing up, and a lot of people will say this, so I'm not the only one saying this, and I'm absolutely, there are lots of voices in this space. But I think that one way to help people is to show them yourself, especially again, if you are the primary steward of your brand, if your brand and your business is run by you and you are a large face and factor in that, I think it's really important for you to show up as yourself. Again, easier said than done, and that's where not tomorrow, but the next day, day 4, that's where we'll talk a little bit about how healing and branding work together, and what you can do to help yourself to show up more authentically out into the world. But again, that's a whole discussion for next time. So those are my 6 pillars that I'm working with. Most of my work will fall underneath that. That does not mean that I can't post something that's outside of that. It's just really guidelines for myself to keep myself focused. Because again, I also have a Sagittarius moon. Like I love to learn, and that's where the education and inspiration pillar goes, or comes in handy. I love to learn about all sorts of things and share. I've always been that friend that or coworker that's like doing that new thing or whatever that thing is and talking about it and kind of like directing people to try new things. So that lives under that part of me that is natural, lives within a pillar that is intentional with my brand. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, you know where I am. And yeah, I'll see you soon for our next video.